wherever there's a problem, a solution is also there. So if you can find a problem, you can also find a solution. So I saw the problems and I was like, I want to come up with a solution. And that was part of what I did as my term as a slam master, as a poetry host in Kansas City.
They'll sell you hope for the price of action. It's for you not to auction your dream at a 9 to 5 gathering. Plan the ropes to be free from self-bondage. Have to fend for yourself. Do not feast with the vultures. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of 8 Plus 1 Classroom. My name is Charles Nzali. Today my guest is a poet, Envian Payne.
Yes. Hello.
Kansas City's own Envian Payne, a poet. Today we're going to take a close look at one of the oldest way of recording history.
Yes, absolutely.
Poetry is powerful. Today we'll allow her to bring us into her space and show us how she do what she does and what inspired her. Welcome to 8 Plus 1 The Classroom.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming out in this Kansas City weather. It started snowing out of nowhere.
Right. The old saying is, if you don't like the weather in Kansas City, just wait 5 minutes. It'll be different.
Yes, it does. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your upbringing.
Oh, wow. A little bit about me. What could you possibly want to know about little old me? So, as we've already stated, I am a poet. I've been doing it professionally. It'll be, 13 years this year in May. However, I've been writing since I was 8 years old, and I'm in my 30s now. So, without revealing my age, you do that math yourself. So, I have quite a bit of experience. Like they say, it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at a craft. So, over 20 years, how many hours is in that amount of time? So, poetry is really something that is close to my heart. It is my way when there is no way. So, yeah, it has been life changing, world changing for me. So, I'm absolutely excited to talk about it today.
It's a blessing to
Yes.
have people like you in
Wow.
in any society because poetry on its own carries a lot of weight.
Yes, absolutely.
Carries a lot of weight, and there is so much rich history
Yes.
in poetry.
Yes, it is. As you said, like before there was the written word, history was passed down through oral tradition.
Yes.
So the way that people would tell stories, the way that people would make up songs, the way that people would make up poems and tell them are griots from way back, back even in Africa with our ancestors. They would pass on these stories.
Folklore.
And the ways of life and the things that they went through, and they would share their joys and their tragedies, their triumphs, and they would use it through the gift of words, the magic of words. So to have that gift and to be able to pass it on and to be able to eloquently express yourself, and not just yourself, but also to be able to connect with others through that expression. I feel like that is the beauty of poetry and the utility of poetry and the way that it can bring everyone into, even if you aren't a poetry fan, or even if you're one of those people that think, well, after William Shakespeare and, whatever they made you have to learn in 10th grade English, that's poetry. That's old dead people, like, why should we care about that? But no, poetry is very much alive and well, and it opens doors. Like even with this past Grammys season of the 2020, what is the 2022 Grammys or 2023, whatever, the how they do that thing. Spoken word poetry was just introduced as a category. So there are poets who can now win Grammys. There are poets who are on Broadway. There are poets who have been in movies. There are poets who have opened and been inaugural for presidents.
Yeah.
So, like, the possibility of poetry is very much alive and well. And it ain't nothing but, it's not just the old dead people that we had to read about. Like, it's any and everybody. And that is the thing. Like, you can go from getting it out the mud, like the bottom of the bottom. And like, for my story, poetry, like when I say it's life changing and world changing, it absolutely has been. Because I think some of the opportunities that I have been afforded have only been because of my ability to speak well and to convey my thoughts. And I would not have been able to do that if I did not know how to sit with myself and write down what's going on.
So what brought you into poetry?
Oh, wow. So, as an 8-year-old, what brought me into poetry, it was really interesting because I recall my first grade teacher doing a unit on poetry. And she was, teaching us with the Shel Silverstein book, A View from the Attic. We were reading like Dr. Seuss. So, and we were learning about poetry in that regard. But like, we were also challenged to like try to, write or come up with something on our own. So my very first poem, and I still remember this as an 8-year-old, was about popcorn, so deep. Regular movie snack popcorn. But I got into it and I fell in love with the ability to just like, wow, look at them. They're writing words and they're rhyming and they're telling a story, but it's like really, really short. And so that was really cool to me. What got me back into poetry more seriously was when I was in high school and dealing with a lot of teenage angst, dealing with a lot of trauma and things that I really did not know or have the real words to deal with, but just not having any other outlet for those emotions and for that pain. And so I began to write. And it was a comforting tool for me, just being able to write. So high school, made it to my early 20s, and by that time I was on social media, and I had a friend of mine, because I was writing my poems. And they were like, hey, you like poetry? I was like, yeah. And they told me about a local open mic that was in town. And I didn't even know like that there was a poetry community in Kansas City or anything like that. So, they said, hey, come to this open mic. And I went and I performed like this poem I had memorized. And when I was done, the whole room was clapping for me. And it just like, you could have knocked me over with a feather in that moment. Like, cause I was like, these people are clapping for me, for my words. And like, I was hooked ever since. And that was 13 years ago. So here we are.
Poetry, right?
Yes.
It's been around for a really long time. So hearing you speak about there being a open mic in Kansas City where people can go and read their poems and do poetry, that is beautiful. Simply because in recent times the rise of all forms of music has kind of blocked it's kind of blocked poetry a little bit. At least on my view, I might be wrong. So is there a lot of those avenues that people can go ahead and showcase their poetry, like the open mic? Does that happen a lot?
So the thing about poetry, and especially with poetry, at least in Kansas City, it has always been, I guess, at least for as long as I had known about it was one of those like you had to be invited in. Like it was I don't want to say underground, but it was like if you didn't know about poetry in Kansas City, or if you weren't like actively like searching for it, seeking it out, like it wasn't going to be one of those things that's going to pop up like, hey, here's the poetry show, come to it. So there was a bit of like gatekeeping, I would say, that that I don't think is really right, because poetry is for everybody. And a lot of times you would see like poetry only being like kind of collectivized, where okay, if you're in this group you come here, if you're in that group you go here, if you do poetry like this you go there, if you do poetry like that you go here. And I recall when I was hosting regularly noticing that there was an error with that, because like I said, there's poetry is for everybody. There should be no boundaries. There should be no, oh, we go here and people are going to let us get on the mic. And if you're new, you might have to wait till it's only 5 people left and it's the end of the night before you get to go on stage. Or, oh, only these are the heavy hitting poets, and these are the poets that win everything. So they go here. And if I'm a new poet and I'm just, kind of getting my toes wet, I don't feel comfortable in that space because I don't feel like I'm good enough, so to speak, because maybe I don't have these titles, or maybe I haven't gone to nationals, or maybe I haven't done this or done that. Or then you have the people that, oh, I only do it as a hobby, but what if I have serious goals? What if I want to see if I can make this a career? So I noticed that there was a lot of division and gatekeeping within the artist scene here, and it was my goal when I started my brand of my shows, hosting, and it was under the umbrella Envion Presents, and then whatever the title may have been of the particular show, like the most notable one Before the Wind Slam. But I wanted it to be inclusive. I wanted it to be someplace where if this was your first time on an open mic, you could come and spit your poem. If you're the person who, I want to read out of my notebook, I want to read off my phone, you can come and do your poem and you don't have to feel like nobody's judging you because it's not memorized. If you're like, hey, I just, I think I can do this, I think I can be somebody, I think I can be a professional poet. Like, I wanted it to be an avenue for that, like out of Kansas City. So I looked at it, and wherever there's a problem, a solution is also there. So if you can find a problem, you can also find a solution. So I saw the problems and I was like, I want to come up with a solution. And that was part of what I did as my term as a slam master, as a poetry host in Kansas City.
That's good. That is beautiful. The ability to create space for other people to come in
Yes.
and share that space with you makes it a safe space for people to come and be a part
Yes,
of.
absolutely. That has always and it always will be my goal, to have a safe space for artists, for community. Not big on censorship, but also, not where, hey, we're just gonna come talk about B rhymes with C rhymes with tree, like where you can actually express yourself, where you can get something off your chest. Like during For the Win, we would have an open mic, and yeah, you could get up there and you could do poetry, or you could sing, rap, tell a anecdotal story or comedy, that kind of thing. But I also would open it up like, hey, if you got something on your chest, you came out your house to be amongst these group of people, throw that to the trees. Don't, if you have something, a grievance that you encountered throughout the day, I don't care if the person at your job is sticking on your nerves. I don't care if somebody cut you off before you turn in a parking lot. If you have a grievance on your chest, get it off, throw it to the trees, set yourself free, and enjoy the art. And because I've always wanted to create that safe space, because I've always known how essential a safe space is, because there's been times in my life where that was not a thing for me, where I did not have a safe space. And so I knew that if I had the control to create a thing, it would have to be a safe space and it would have to be inclusive.
Yeah, inclusion, right? Now let's stay a little bit on the topic of inclusion, right?
Yes.
Myself, I deal with that a little bit. I do notice that Kansas City is a little clicky.
Clicky, absolutely,
It is a
yes.
little clicky. You have to be cool with few people, or you have to be cool with a certain clique in order for you to be, you know what I mean, for people to be a part of what you got going on, or for you to be even find yourself in rooms and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, but what you got with you providing that safe space for new poet, new artists to come in and actually
Yes.
participate and actually showcase their talent, that
Yes.
is a very noble thing, and that is really beautiful. I have to
Thank
applaud you
you.
for
Thank
that.
you so much.
I have to applaud you for that.
I truly appreciate that. And I mean, and I don't even want to like really take credit for it, but I just, I just knew it was necessary. And I've seen where the click route would go, you know, because in 13 years, you see a whole bunch of people come and then you see a whole bunch of people go. And the people who know that their talent is their ticket. So it's not, oh, I need to be cool with these people. Oh, I need to go sit in these folks' face. Oh, I need to, okay, well, if I talk to this person, I can't talk to that person. If I talk, like,
Yeah.
I'm not doing the politics with you. I am too talented to do politics with you. And I know I'm talented. So either my talent is my ticket or I don't need to be in that space because I'm not going to play the game. And I don't see the point of playing the game because that's not what I started for. I started because I needed an outlet and I needed a release. And as I started to grow in my talent and in people knowing who I was and people looking to me, I looked at the example of other people and I saw, so that's one of the things, right? Never be afraid to learn from others. That's one of the things that I learned. Never be afraid to learn from other people, like for better or for worse. Everybody can teach you something. So even if they're teaching you how to fail, that's still a lesson, right? So I would watch people and I would watch how folks would be like, well, no, only my friends, only people that want to kiss my ass, excuse my language, are going to be welcome and treated nice in this
Oh,
space.
we speak French here.
Oh, well, hell yeah, then let's get it.
We speak French here.
All right.
This is a safe space for people to.
Well, hey, you speaking my language then. So the people are like, hey, if you're not going to kiss my ass, then, well, I'm not going to let you get your time on the mic. Or, if you're not going to kiss my ass, I'm going to give you a lackluster introduction. But then when my friends or my people, oh, this is the best person that ever came. Come on now, So I watched that and I watched all of those people come to a point where they could not go any further. And then because you had alienated so many people, because when you were on top, you forgot that the same people you meet on the way up, you might meet on the way down. So you didn't care how you treated people. And you didn't care because, well, it's about you now. You have your time in the sun. But everybody gets time in the sun. So I've always stood with my principles. I've always stood with my morals. And that is treating people the way I want to be treated, giving respect to everyone. Like something that's really big for me is respect is inherent. Disrespect is earned. You don't have to do nothing for me to respect you. Because you are another human being, because I can see the value in you and the value in your humanity, that is enough for me. Now, if you're disrespectful, that's different. But you don't have to do nothing to get respect from me. Respect is inherent. That is a must. That is base level. Now, once respect is gone, okay, now we on to something else. But it has always been important to pay attention to those things. And how you treat people is the important thing, because people are your biggest resource, no matter what it is that you do. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're an entertainer, if you are an athlete, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, teacher, whatever, your biggest and best resource is always going to be other human beings.
I'm gonna say a few things, right? It's two phrases that growing up, right, I was taught a lot of. It was something that was said very often in where I come from, right? That your talent, your money, your fame will never cannot bury you.
Boom. Say that. Come on.
Yeah, your talent, your fame, your money, whatever it is, would never bury it. When you die, those things cannot bury you, and that is
Absolutely.
the highest of respect that any human being can ever
Yes.
can ever can ever earn is a burial, cremation, however you want it, for it to be done in a very peaceful and most
Yes.
amazing way, right? And you cannot do that for yourself. Your money is not going to do. Your fame is never going to do that for you. And however, whatever amount of money you have and fame and glory and all this extra stuff, you're never gonna. That's never
Yes.
gonna do nothing for you when you're not anymore. You
Absolutely.
know. And
Absolutely.
another thing that they say is, you know, is that your integrity you're born with, right? Your integrity is who you are. That's who you are, right? So do not lose your integrity, chasing glory.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So a lot of times when we find ourselves in these situations trying to have a come up, sometimes we compromise our integrity just to be noticed and just to be seen. That's why my platform, I am very protective of this, right?
Yes.
I know people that on a human level, I'm not a big fan of who they are as people, right?
Yes.
But I know I can shove a microphone in front of them and turn all these cameras on and just poke them, and they will say some of the craziest stuff in
Yes.
the world, right? That is going to bring me a bunch of
Views.
views, a bunch of traction, right? But is that really what I do this
What you
for?
want. Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
So those things sometimes are things that we forget. You know what I mean? We chase the glory to the point where that we lose who we really are. And
Yes.
if you make it out big, if you get famous, whatever it is, whatever level you get to, right? Doing that, by the time you get to the top, you lose who you are,
Right.
and the price that you're going to pay for that is heavy.
Oh, yes.
It's heavy.
Yes. Even with what you're saying, like the first name that popped into my mind was the Godfather, is that what he's called? Kevin Samuels.
Yeah.
How, he made his career off of denigrating and tearing down people, more specifically black women. And then, he passed. And
Yeah.
people rejoiced,
Yeah.
instead of it being a time of mourning, of people wanting to give him his flowers, literally or
Yeah.
figuratively.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this was a good man, he did this, he did that. You spent your life, or well, not your whole life, but at least your platform, you spent your rise to fame shitting on people, and then you pass away, and you get what he got, what he gave.
Yeah.
No one. There were some people that were like, "Oh, okay, Kevin, blah blah blah," but the majority of people, even his fan base,
Yeah.
the majority of people, his mother has to find out her child passed on social media. Wow. But you, sir, got the keys to success for black men and black women, and you know how to tell somebody how to be high value, but you passed away, and it was a time to rejoice. And not because you was going home, because you wasn't the hell here no more. That's not the type of legacy I want to leave. I would rather, when that time comes, hopefully when I'm 112 years old, I would rather people sit around and be like, man, why is it not more murals and monuments to envy on, than for somebody to be like, now why the hell they decide to memorialize her? And that is the kind of reaction that Kevin Samuels got, because that is the kind of life that he lived. And while that can be a bit of an extreme example, like I said, you can learn something from everybody. So even watching his platform, it's like, hey, you don't get to just shit on people because you think you can, or because you think you happen to be better than them. people matter, and they're always going to be your biggest resource. So you have to be mindful of the way you are to other people. That'll always be the most important thing.
Yeah, that is true. That is very very true. But let's get a little uh, let's get a little let's get to know you, right?
Oh, me? Okay.
As a poet, right? Who would you say were your favorite poets growing up and why?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So, one of the things that I always love to say, like, whenever this question comes around, is that I stand on the shoulders of giants. I am from a very long lineage and legacy of female poets and writers that came before me, that inspired me, that gave me, you know, just like, wow, your mastery of language, your ability to talk about the mundane, or talk about the morose, or talk about, just these monumental things, but to make it uniquely yours, but still have a perspective that anyone who may pick up your book, or this little girl from Kansas City will pick up your book and further fall in love with language and the art form. So some of those poets, of course, you have to say Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, Lucille Clifton, Anais Nin, Sylvia Plath. Those were like the written Gwendolyn Brooks, one of the first, we cool like that. We real cool, love her just ability to give life to words. Like if she were to write on this white table, colors would spring forth from writing, from their language. So those were some of my literary foremothers. As far as the performing aspect, like so spoken word, because that was something else that that I still am really into. I would say Patricia Smith, Andrea Gibson, very very big. Role models, Jessica Care Moore. Actually, one of the really cool stories about her was I saw her on Apollo when I was a little girl. And so this was like before I even learned about poetry, but on Apollo, Showtime at the Apollo, where they would have people, come on, you do your act, and you perform, and then if it's no good, people will boo you off the stage, not you go to the end, so they clap or whatever. So I would watch that show religiously as a kid, and you would always have like the singers or the dancers, or even sometimes comedians, and they would come and they would shut the show down. But there was this poet who came, and nothing but words, one. And I was like, well, I want to do that too. Like, cause I don't have to be the best singer or dancer, but maybe I could write something. Maybe I could, like, I was just so intrigued by the fact that you're just talking. And these people that can sing, not sing, or dance their asses off, but just you speaking and you won, like that intrigued me. So like these poets were who really inspired me and just like made me like, hey, I could do that too, or I want to do that too. And I guess I was right.
The names you've named here, right? The Maya Angelos of the world, the Nikki Giovannis of the world,
Yes.
and then you did mention that some of those writers, when they write on this white table, colors will sprinkle up. If you know about poetry a little bit, right, you'll know that the W.E.B. Webbs of the world, those were at their time. This is years and years and years ago. At their time, they were doing with words what painters were doing with the brush, right?
Yes, come on.
These are what I call, these are wordsmiths. These are people who craft words and turn them into physical things.
Yes,
you know
come
what I
on.
mean? Just the way they are able to command these words. You stepping into that platform, right? How are you preparing yourself? One, two, how are you shaping yourself in this amongst these legends without cheating the game?
Well, first, I'm not to legendary status yet, so I think I gotta,
Yeah,
I still
yeah.
got a little ways to go. But also, I think always being mindful of that, knowing that I'm not once where I once was, but I'm also not where I want to 100% be. So be careful either way, because you don't want to fall back and you want to still be able to go forward. So be careful, be mindful of the way you do things. With me, I am very, very, very intentional when it comes to my poetry, because while I do not believe that I'm legendary yet, it still is a yet on the end of that motherfucker. You know, I do believe that this is a part of my legacy and my life work. And so, like, there are times, and more times than not, where if I write a poem, I let the idea, just, the idea, the emotion, whatever it is, come from my head to the paper. Okay, that's first draft. Then I will go through with a dictionary. I will go through with the thesaurus, just to make sure that the word choice that came from my raw emotion what is the actual best word choice for the message that I'm trying to convey. Like, I'm talking about looking up the a and it type words, just to really putting that much dedication and that much work into what it is that I do. I'm always a student of the craft. Like, I would never be so foolhardy and so arrogant and say, like, oh, I know everything there is to know about poetry. There are over 500 verse forms. People have been writing since, like, or the written word since, like, 500-600 BC. What about before people could write? So to have all of these different facets and layers and levels of poetry, and then to also look at the people who I admire and the levels that I hope that I'm blessed to reach. I have to always understand that this is a gift. Like, my talent is my gift from God, but what I do with it is my gift back to God. And so because I believe that, and because I know I stand on the shoulders of giants, I got to be careful. I gotta be careful. Don't fall off the giant shoulders. Don't dig your heels in the giant shoulders neither. But just make sure, like, really take it seriously. So yeah. Well, I'm the cool kid, so
How much effort goes into writing, let's say, one point?
one poem for me, wow. Depending on the poem, it could take everything that I have in me left at that moment to get through that poem. There are so the thing with me, I'm not a poet who just writes because I'm a creative writer. Like, I'm an excellent writer. I can write stories, I can write essays, I can write, but poetry is my gift. So when I'm doing poetry, it is normally because it comes from something I've lived, something I've witnessed, something I've experienced, something that I am this close to. So sometimes it may take, I need to live some more so I can get some distance perspective on this thing and actually write down what's going on or what was going on. There have been times where I have been right on the tail end of a tragedy. And the only thing that I know how to do, I can't make sense of it any other way but to sit down and pray through a poem. So what goes into my poems, like, as far as the actual effort, everything. There are times when I have put everything into a poem, into a piece of writing, because I needed to get that thing on out. I need to get it off my chest, up off my heart, out my brain. So you leave it there. Like, we have this thing that we say, like in slam poetry, performance poetry, leave it on the stage. So you, if you're gonna leave something, you got to make sure you got enough to leave. So it takes a lot of effort goes into my writing. But then I also don't want to act like it's always just so super serious and like, okay, I got to hold myself up in sequester for 3 days before I write something down. Though that has been a very real thing. A poem that people probably know me most for is the poem Target Practice. And that poem actually was written because of the people, John and Joe Hooker, whose name I mentioned in that poem. They were tragically, brutally murdered, set up and brutally murdered. And when I got that news, like, my best friend at the time called me, and I couldn't even understand her. Like, she was crying so hysterically hard. And I didn't, and once I could understand what was going on, she was just like, they took John, they took Joe, they took, like, I didn't know what to do. Because not that it matters anything at all that these young men weren't street dudes or they weren't in the gangs or, living that life at all, and they still met a horrible, tragic end like that. It terrified me because in that poem, the fear is raising a Black child, and no matter what, it does not matter how good of a parent you may be if your child ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time or around the wrong type of people. And so for 3 days, like, I couldn't sleep, I could not eat, I didn't know what to do, because it was the grief and the loss, but then also the fear and the turmoil, because it's like, I got a little Black boy. I am raising a little Black boy. And these 2 good young men, one of them just got a scholarship to college. The other one, the incident happened because he was trying to provide for his daughter. And they were just taken. And so I just stayed up in my head, and I didn't know what to do. But the first line, it's like I gave birth to a target. It's like my baby's a target. And it went from there. So the effort that I put into my poems, all of it, as much as needed. Truly.
That right there is heavy in the heart.
Yes.
But once you learn how to connect what's heavy in the heart with writing, the end product is always excellent. It's always so beautiful.
Thank you.
And that's what writing literally does.
Yes.
Provides you that channel where sometimes, even after the after effect of it, when you look back, when you read back what you write, you're telling yourself, how the hell did I write this?
Yes. Yes. I would love to be as clever and intelligent as my poetry.
Yeah.
But that is also how I know that this is truly a gift.
Yeah.
Like, because hell, that. There you go. That's me. If I got it, I can't. But then to be able to sit down and tell a story about this or that, or these really hard things about losing a friend, or about, losing a friend to death, or losing a friend to unfortunate circumstances, or even domestic violence, or police brutality, or just the plight of mental health, and the things that I have encountered as just a Black woman existing in America and in this society. Like, again, some of those things, you see it and you get mad. You want to get mad, you want to scream, you want to cry, but then it's like, okay, how do I put on a paper?
Yeah.
How do I put tears on a paper? And poetry is out.
Yeah. Even during the Black Lives Matter movement, when George Floyd got killed, and during the impasse, right? Something that was another evolution that was going on at the same time, right? It was a huge rise of poetry if you pay attention at that
Yes.
time. So many people went viral, so many poets went viral during that time, reciting what it is they felt in their hearts right in the middle of that chaos. You know what I mean? They were able to maintain the calm
Yes.
and to be calmly rageful, to put how they feel into words, and then, oh man, it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch.
Yes, absolutely. Just so many people really being able to make sense of senseless things. And I think that is one of the jobs of a poet. We make sense of the senseless. We make the ugly things in the world beautiful. We are the first draft historians. Before history and the people who win the battles and the wars get to give their perspective on things, it's like, no, we out here feeling this shit for real, and this is what it is. So if you wanted to know what was going on during the civil rights, read Nikki Giovanni's poetry. Read James Baldwin. Read his books. Like, these people, and it's so many more. And I don't want to get to naming names, because the thing with that, ADHD, forget stuff, and I don't want to be remiss by not saying all of the correct names. But these poets were alive. And they were writing, and they were out in the world, and the things that they were writing about, because time is not linear, no matter what they try to tell you. It always repeats on a cycle. So the things that was going on back then, some of the same things that's going on right now. And you can look and read their poetry, and you can find the value and the emotion. And then, like, the things that they were put in books, you can now go nowadays, like the beauty and the growth of what poetry can be. You can go to an open mic or a poetry reading or a slam, and you can, before you can read, now you can see them emotions being acted out right in front of you. So poets, it's important for us to be informed. It's important for us to know what's going on in the world, because we got to be the ones to fact check this shit when they try to tell us that, or what is the quote? If you're not honest about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it. Well, no, you need to be honest about your pain and honest about what's really happening.
I like that. I like that quote. If you're not honest about your pain, they will kill you and tell you that you enjoyed it.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that. Those two people that you mentioned, right? James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, right?
Yes.
There's a conversation. Their conversation on YouTube, right?
Yes.
It's, I think, in total about 3 hours. They have a 1 hour 30 minutes one, and then a 30 minutes one, something like that, right?
Yes.
On YouTube. That I listen to a lot. I listen to it over and over. Just their conversation on the dynamic between a man and a woman.
Yes.
And the responsibility, the role of a man in the house and the role of a woman. Why is the man absent and why is the man not there? I mean, it's
so heavy, but it's so important. And the thing is, you can play that
Today.
right today
Yeah.
and be like,
Yeah.
you don't say this.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what it is.
Yeah.
So in that time, it repeats. It is a cycle. We're on a cipher with the time. So it is important to know where you've been and what's been going on so you can be prepared for where you're going. We move forward while looking back. Sankofa. So you gotta,
Yeah.
you need to know. We gotta be informed.
And you know, poetry has always been part of Black history. You know, it's always
Yes,
been poetry.
absolutely.
As an African child, you know, you were always told uh, about your ancestors. You know what I mean? How your ancestors, what they did, their legacy, and that is what motivates you. That is what kind of sets it sets the foundation through which you're going to forge ahead, right?
Yes,
You know what they did,
absolutely.
but those things were never written. They were passed on through folklore. You know what I mean? And that folklore guided your grandparents, my grandparents passed that on to my dad, who passed that on to me, and then it's my responsibility when I do become a grandparent, a great grandparent,
Yes.
to pass that information on to
Yes.
my children and their children and that lineage, that generations and generations to come, right? Those things were done by poet, you know,
Yes.
and now, you know, we're getting. It almost seems like the art is getting lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The art is just it's. But to see that people are still heavily writing, people are documenting what is going on right now, because our best form of inspiration is what is happening.
Yes.
You know what I mean? As a writer, your best inspiration is what you feel, what is going on around you. Is going to be the best inspiration that you can ever have. So it does a musician, somebody that's writing music the same way. You know,
Yes.
you will always hear the joke about Mary J. Blige being the best writer as far. She writes best when she's going through a breakup or a heartbreak and stuff like. You hear that a lot, but that is what is going on at the time in her life. So that inspires her creativity, right?
Yes.
So poets and artists and writers and musicians, and they're inspired by what's going on around them today and their
Yes.
environment, and that, with the way the world is set up, that does resonate years and years and years later. Somebody is still going through that same emotion or that same feeling. Somebody or has been through that feeling.
Yes.
So when they do open your work and look at it, they're like, I know what this is.
Yes.
I recognize this. This is
It's the
exactly.
human experience.
Yes, this
You
is
know, we
exactly.
all know love. We all know loss. We all hopefully will one day know triumph and what it feels like to achieve our goals or our greatest dreams. We also know what it's like to fail or to face a rejection. So to write about those things, and no matter what the vehicle may be, it's very important. And I think you brought up a really awesome point about how we can look at people today and how they live and the things that they write about. And I know a lot of times, like, to veer the conversation to maybe even hip hop and some of the younger artists, and how it's like, we have the drill music and, even different rap songs, and they receive a lot of flack. It's like, oh, your message is too violent or it's too sexual. But the thing is, these people, the ones who actually write their songs, let's say that, the people who are actually writing their lives and their lived experiences, how can we fault them for telling us their truth?
Yeah.
If you're telling me your truth, I don't get to disagree with it. I may feel away. I may be like, oh, that's some heavy shit, or damn, that you went through all that. But I don't get to not like your truth. I don't get to tell you, oh no, That's your truth. Do something else. Like, because that's the thing with truth. The truth is truth. The lighting can change. The nuance can change, but the truth will always be the truth. And that's part of how you know it is the truth.
Yeah.
Can it resonate? Does it stand the test of time? So when we have these works from these poets of yesteryear and even back to our ancestors and the folklore and the oral traditions that was passed down, the reason why those stories could last the test of time is because they were truth. And truth will always be needed, necessary, and valuable. So stick to your truth. You know, I know sometimes people can be like, oh, well, I want to write what people will listen to, or I want to write what people are going to, you know, what's going to get me 1 million views in 2 days, or, you know, but and there's always room for that, you know. Get your money, do what you need to do. I'm not going to knock nobody's hustle, but remember that there's always a time and a place and a need for truth. And that is what is a hallmark of great artistry. That is the hallmark of the artists who I look to and who have inspired me and who made me believe that I could do this myself. They always had a very real truth and realness in their artistry.
And you know, I agree 100% with what you were saying, right? You cannot expect, let's say, a Cardi B to be Lauryn Hill,
Boom.
right?
There you go. Very true.
Yeah. But you can listen to Cardi B and George her, right? And then you can go listen to Lauryn Hill and hear this. In some of her songs, you'll see the same underlining message of what Cardi is saying
Yes.
in her message, but it's so lyrically rich to where her lyrical ability has allowed her to use words that are so polished and
Yes.
beautifully crafted to where that message is buried through the beauty of those words, and you're not even getting what she is talking about, but she's talking about the same stuff that you might hear Cardi talk about, and everybody's outraged about it, right?
Yes.
But if you look at her background, where you see from, she's from the strip club. That's who she is. That's her truth, right? And you want to knock her for her truth,
Right.
or you want to listen to the artistry that is around her truth. This is what my truth is. This is what I know. This is what I did. You know what I mean? This is the same lady that came and said, I got a bag and went and did my teeth. You know what I mean? So she started off with that in the first place. And Bodak Yellow, she came telling us, I don't dance now.
Yeah.
I make money move.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
She just told us straight off from the beginning. I used to dance.
Yes.
I'm not dancing now. I'm making money moves. And the same song she told us, I fixed my teeth was fucked up.
Yeah.
Now I fix my teeth.
Got a bag and fix my teeth.
Yeah, she came on straight up telling us, this is who I am. And if you were gonna expect her to be anything else.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. You know, everyone's artistic style and signature can be, and quite frankly should be, as different as the person that it comes from. You know, there's already one Envion. And not saying that there's anyone in contention to be the next Envion, but also saying there is nobody in contention to be the next Envion, because there's only one. And so if someone else also wants to be a poet and an activist and a teacher and all of these different things, more power to you. But I want you to do it for you. I want to hear your story. I want to hear it in your voice, because I got me. I'm telling my story. I'm still, you know. So I think there's always room for different people at the table of artistry. And it takes all different kinds of people to make the world go round, right? But the only vice that is unforgivable to me is hypocrisy, right? So Like we said, Cardi B came in the game. You know, I got my start stripping, dancing. Okay, if that's what you want to rap about, that's your life, that's your truth, that's where you came from, cool. What would be an issue for me is if she came in and was like, okay, now I'm gospel rapping and should nobody be on the pole and everybody need to wear these dresses to their ankles and we gonna pray and don't shake nothing. Like, well, wait a minute now. You did all this to get famous. Now you're famous. And back to that whole integrity piece, it's like, if you're not maintaining your integrity, who are you as an artist, right? And who are you as a person? And should there be a separation between the art and artist?
Uh, that's a good segue, right? I want to ask you a question, right? Sometimes, right, it's very common recently when people talk, they say you have to separate the art and the person, right? They can you really separate somebody's poetry from? Can I separate your poetry from you as an
No,
individual?
you can't. You absolutely cannot. If I wrote it, if I said it, it was indicative of the person I was at that moment in time. A poem is a tombstone. A poem is a way to eulogize a moment, right? So if I wrote it and say, oh, you know, somebody, oh, she said bitch ass nigga in this poem, let's cancel her. Like just for example. Well, you gonna have to fucking cancel me then, because that's what the fuck I meant in that moment. So if you got a problem with it now, of course I've learned, I've grown, I've had more life experience, got some distance perspective. I might even be able to look back and be like, you know what? Probably could have had a better word choice, or probably could have done things differently. But coulda, woulda, shoulda
Ain't gonna do nothing.
ain't gonna do nothing. And we have to learn to forgive ourselves for thinking we could have done better before we knew that we could do better. So if something from my past, or if something that I wrote, or if the person that I was disqualifies my art or my artistry or my poetry to a person, so the fuck be it. I don't want you as a fan no damn way, you know? But you got to allow people to live and grow and change, because that's true. We all fall short. We all make mistakes. We all need grace. But there is a difference between something being a thing that you've done and something being a thing that you are. And when it comes down to the things that you do, which your actions do become who you are, when the things that you do become who you are, how can we separate those two things? You can't. And unless you're delusional, unless you want to, you know, just practice cognitive dissonance and be like, well, no. But no, the art and the artist are the same thing, or at least they should be. Now, I can see there being a bit of discrepancy when it comes to the music industry, but that is because a lot of times artists don't create their own songs totally. You got a producer, you might have a team of songwriters, you might have a ghostwriter, you might have, you know, all of these different people, beat maker, just all these different people, musicians that go into it. Okay, so if 20 people went into writing this song and one of the 20 ain't shit, well, maybe you don't got to throw away the whole damn song because this one person, maybe I ain't gonna listen to your music no more. But when it comes to the artistry, like poetry, like, or even, you know, people who do write their own songs, then absolutely not. You should not be able to separate the art from the artist, because the artist is who made that art. It is an extension of them. My art is an extension of me and who I've been. So yeah, there is no delineation. Yeah. Except for my art is a little bit cooler than I am sometimes.
Man, I could sit here all day and just listen to you.
Same. Speak. I could talk to you all day. Look, that's what I do. Run my mouth.
Speak. You are very, very eloquent.
Thank you.
And you sound very smart as well. Smart, really, really, really smart. I I do appreciate you a lot.
Thank you for
You
having
know,
me. I'm so grateful to be here.
thank you very much, though. Thank you very much. If all the people I reach out to in trying to get on my platform, I'm gonna just say this, right, are so easy to deal with, like you are.
Thanks.
You are,
Respect.
you are really, really huge class act. I reached out to you via somebody yesterday, and today
Here we are.
we are shooting an episode. But many a times, I've, my messages are in a lot of inboxes read without a yes or no type of situation. But hey, but who am I to be mad about that?
You know,
It just gives me great joy when I do reach out to people like you and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do it, and then you actually show up and do it. It's a blessing. It's respect. I appreciate that a lot. I do that.
thank you. And thank you. And it reminds me of a quote from Ed Mabry, and he's like one of the best poets in the world, like as far as slam and titles are concerned. He once said, "The people who I think should support me never do, but strangers make me believe in angels." And so when I read that, I was like, it really resonated with me. So if I have a choice, if I have an opportunity to support someone, to make a person believe in angels, that's the choice I want to make.
And yes, I'm humbled. I'm humbled. Thank you very much.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank
My son, he is 15 now. And
you. You have a 15-year-old?
I have a
There
15
is
year
no.
old. Look, black don't crack, baby.
I
Look.
don't know how old you
Yes.
think you
Yes.
is. You are not that old.
I have a 15-year-old, a 15, oh no, 16. He'll be 16 this year. Yes, my dear, I do.
You better take whoever kid that is back to their mother. Talk about you get a 15-year-old. You don't have no 15-year-old. Take that kid back to her mom. Take that kid back to his mama. Talk about I got a 15-year-old. You ain't got no damn 15-year-old.
Indeed.